And with its latest decision, the Supreme Court just helped them move another giant step closer to achieving that goal. Joining me now is Laurence Tribe, professor of constitutional law emeritus at Harvard Law School, author of many important books, including American Constitutional Law and To End a Presidency, The Power of Impeachment. Professor Tribe, thank you for being here. I conflated a few things because there were a couple of Supreme Court decisions that all have influence around this. Of course, the big one was on Monday morning. You tweeted this morning that you're going to come on the show and tell us about ways we can push back against this unprecedented ruling. So I open the floor to you.
Thanks, Ali, and thank you for having me on again. Yes, it is important to not simply roll over and play dead in the face of this astonishing ruling, because the ruling itself depends on several things. One of the things it depends on is the union of the presidency with the prosecutorial arm of the government. In over 40 states and in many nations, that mistake isn't made. The prosecutorial arm is not under the thumb of the chief executive of the nation. So one of the things we can do, although it's always uphill to amend the Constitution, is begin considering creating an institutionalized independence. I had an op-ed in the New York Times a few days ago proposing that. A second thing that we can do is directly address this absurd notion that anyone in this country is above the law. I propose that in addition to creating independence, real independence for the prosecutorial arm, that we adopt an amendment that I think an overwhelming majority of the country would immediately favor, and that is essentially, though the language would need to be tweaked, nothing in this Constitution shall be construed to confer immunity on any individual from the operations of the criminal law by virtue of an office that individual previously held. The third thing we can do is begin treating the Supreme Court itself as one of the issues in this election. I'm not in favor of the impeachment resolutions that I think are going to be introduced against Justices Clarence Thomas and Sam Alito, because I think that can boomerang, and I'm not sure that they have committed technically impeachable offenses, though they probably have. I am in favor of taking a close look at Supreme Court reform. I was a member of President Biden's Commission on Supreme Court Reform a couple of years ago. We studied the court for over a year, compared it to the apex courts of other countries. It is the only apex court that is highest court in the land anywhere with anything like this kind of power that has less than 13 to 15 members. So the court needs to be enlarged. Indeed, unfortunately, part of Project 25 commits the new president, if it happens to be Trump, to replacing the elderly right-wing justices, probably replacing the 70-something justices, Thomas and Alito, with decades younger far-right justices. But beyond that, we need to look at term limits, and most important, we need to have an enforceable code of ethics, not simply one that is up to the court itself to enforce. And if there were an inspector general or some other device to enforce that code, then Alito and Thomas surely would not have voted in two of the major cases this year, the one that would have taken Trump off the ballot, and now the one that makes Trump virtually a king. It's also important to realize that the court has now facilitated Project 2025's aspiration to deconstruct the administrative state. This court, in the Loper-Bright decision, basically, without getting technical, said that the alphabet soup of administrative agencies, the EPA, the FDA, the SEC, all of the post-New Deal agencies are now subject to plenary, open-ended review by the federal courts, no deference to their expertise. So we now have an imperial judiciary walking arm in arm with an imperial executive. And we need to take these things not as given just because the highest court in the land has said so, but as inconsistent with our aspirations to democracy and to a functioning government.
So of those practical things that you talk about, term limits, ethical enforcement, perhaps with an inspector general, or the expansion of the court, what's the most doable in the current political climate that we have?
I think the inspector general enforcing a code of ethics is the most doable, but we can't limit ourselves to the easiest things. We're never going to get to the top of the mountain unless we start the journey. And throughout our history, we have treated the Constitution sometimes too much as a sacred, unamendable document. We've only amended it 27 times. We have to remember that we have in the past amended it to solve serious problems. And the amendment process, unlike the legislative process, bypasses the presidency. There is no role for the president in amending the Constitution. And we need to put those amendments on the table.
Professor Tribe, we appreciate the thought that you put into this and the fact that you are not, like so many people, throwing up their hands and saying, despite how perverse this decision seems to be, that there's no road forward. So we always appreciate your time. Lawrence Tribe is a professor emeritus of constitutional law at Harvard Law School. He's the author of the books American Constitutional Law and To End a Presidency, The Power of Impeachment, among many others.
Hey there, MSNBC fans. I'm Luke Russert, and be sure to join me, Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki, Lawrence O'Donnell, Steve Kornacki, Joy Reid, and many more September 7th in Brooklyn, MSNBC Live Democracy 2024. Click on the link for ticket information. We will see you there.